Good afternoon. Before we get started here today, I'd just like to first recognize the essential workers that have been out in our community the last 5 days, helping all that have been impacted by this ice storm here this past weekend. It's not lost on me or our team here, the effort and work that's going on to help to get this city back up and running. We know that it's an ongoing process, and we're just thankful for the people that are working tirelessly to help. Well, this is a special day here. I want to thank everyone for being here. We are very excited. It's an exciting day here for the Tennessee Titans organization and fan base as we are set to introduce our new leader and head coach. I would like to first thank Amy for her unwavering support throughout this head coaching search, as well as Kenneth and Burke for their belief and trust in our process. There's been a lot of time and effort here invested to get to this day here today. I couldn't have done it without the help of so many people, particularly our search committee that we put together with Chad, Dave, Dan, and Reggie. Thank you. You know, when I first met with the committee, I thought it was important to clearly define what we wanted in our next head coach. Ultimately, what we wanted was a leader for this football team that could build a winning culture and connect the entire building. We were looking for a leader with high character, integrity, humility, a leader with high football IQ and great teaching skills, a leader with clearly defined standards that had the ability to hold people accountable in this organization, a leader with a clear vision, plan, and process for this team, a leader with a high level of organization and detail. And finally, we wanted a leader that was relentless and committed and had a passion for this job. After a long, extensive search process, that leader for us was Robert Saleh. I've long admired Robert from afar, competing against his teams over the years. The one thing that always stood out to me was his energy and passion that he exhibited on the field. And one of the big takeaways for me is I used to stand pregame on the field and watch Robert with his players, and sometimes go down after the game and be on the sideline. His players loved playing for him. I'm just thrilled now that all you guys here, our players, have an opportunity to play for Coach Saleh. I am so excited here to get started to work with him, to build this together into a championship caliber team that our Titan fan base can be proud of. It's an honor to introduce the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Robert Saleh.
What's up, everybody? I'm not big on, I'm going to pull my inner Mike McDaniel. I'm not a big opening statement guy, but I do want to thank a lot of people, starting with the Tennessee Titans and especially Miss Amy for this opportunity, Chad, Mike. It's been an unbelievable experience just going through this entire process. The San Francisco 49ers, the York family, the Shanahan family, the fans, just everybody over there, just so thankful for the opportunities they gave. My family, just being by my side, my wife, my kids, my parents are here, my brother, just thankful for all of them. And obviously, the most important piece to all of this, our players who are all back there. Can't wait to work with y'all, man. It's going to be freaking fun. We're going to get after it day after day. We're going to get better. We're going to bring a championship home, and it's going to start with you guys. But with that said, I'll open it up to you guys, and I'm looking forward to this. Good.
Great. All right, we'll start Q&A. We'll start with Teresa over here, and then we'll circle around, okay, guys? Just raise your hand, and we'll get to all of you, okay?
Hi, Robert. Teresa Walker with the Associated Press. This being your second time around as a head coach, what's maybe the biggest lesson that you take into this second time from your first chance?
You know, I'll be honest, like, there's no handbook to a first time at anything you do, you know. And what I would say, the proper question would be, what didn't I learn? You know, and there's so much to gain from any time you're in the chair as a head coach. And there's so many learning experiences that I had. So I can sit here and talk to you for the next 4 hours about all those different things, but I can assure you that there was tremendous growth through the opportunity that I had with the Jets. And through that growth, I think I'm more prepared now than I've ever been to attack this position.
Hi, Robert. Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com. Can you walk us through a bit your plan for Cam Ward and how you and Brian expect to get the most out of him heading into his second year and into his career?
No, absolutely. Great question, too. You know, like Cam, from everything that I've gathered, just all the discussions I've had throughout the building and throughout the league, comes with an elite work ethic, elite character, an elite person. And, you know, when you look at his body of work as a rookie, a lot of these rookies, when they come in through the middle of OTAs. But so the biggest thing that we're going to work with Cam, just going all the way back to the beginning, you know, we've gotten a whole off season to work with him, taken back to the very, very beginning, both on the field, off the field, the process at which what it looks like to not only be a professional with regards to preparation in his body, but as a professional with regards to preparing from a game planning standpoint or a playbook standpoint. But, you know, just talking with Dabes over the course of the last few weeks, he is the perfect man to match up with Cam and to maximize who he is. So again, we're really pumped to get to work with Cam and get him to where we all know he can be.
Robert, Jim White with TennesseeTitans.com. What do you want your team to look like on Sundays? What do you want them to be known for week in and week out?
Fast and violent, man. Play in and play out. We're going to play with speed. We're going to play confident. We're going to have some swag. Talk a little. But I want them to show who they are, play in and play out. And like I said, the one thing that you'll notice is the speed at which we play and the violence at which we do it.
Robert, Terry McCormick, Main Street Media Publications. Wanted to ask you about Brian Daboll and how much control you're going to give him of the offense and what that will look like or what you want it to look like.
You know, obviously, Dabes and I have a tremendous relationship dating back to our time in New York. Obviously on opposite sidelines, but great empathy for one another and just going through those experiences. But, you know, whenever you look at the dynamics of a head coach with his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, obviously it's no different than kind of the way Kyle kind of handled me as a defensive coordinator. You know, there's full autonomy with regards to game planning and putting together the playbook and the scheme that's best for this group of players. But at the same time, there's always going to be discussion in terms of what it's going to take between offense, defense, and special teams, what type of game plan we need to formulate in all three phases to win a football game. And week to week, that's always going to be different. But the communication, the collaboration, the expectations, all those will always be communicated amongst the entire staff. And the idea being that while there's three phases to football, we're still one team. And those discussions will always be had.
Go ahead, Nick.
Nick Suss with the Tennessean. When you talk about the lessons you learned from New York, I'm curious, what are some of the specific things that you plan to do differently or you intend to do differently than obviously the Jets?
I don't know if we have time, man.
Let's start us off with some big ones.
There's little things. You know, I don't want to get in great detail on all that stuff just for sake of just individuality and all that. But, you know, just one thing, and it's such a small thing. You know, I didn't call plays in New York, and I just kind of gave it all to the coordinators, even though we were still part of the game planning and all that. You know, I joke with Borgo on game day when I didn't call plays. I felt like I was just a timeout and red flag guy. You know, I was just kind of I had the greatest seat in the house as a fan. You know, so you know, calling plays for me, it's not necessarily about control, but it's about connecting with the players. You know, when you are a play caller and you are calling plays, you feel the strain that you're putting on them with each call. You're feeling the connection. You're feeling what each one is going through. And again, like I said, I can feel the weight the play call on individual players in those moments, and to be able to call plays and maintain that connection, maintain that feel for what the players are going through, I think is very, very important from my seat, and it's just one of the many things that'll change throughout my tenure.
To Ron Davenport, ESPN. They call me TD.
TD.
Yes, sir. TD. Yes.
Okay.
My question is in regards to Brian Daboll, and as you competed against him and you look back on that, how much did that go into a level of difficulty going against him? Like, how much did that go into your selection? And with Daboll having the ties to the Perkins scheme, like, how much do you feel that's going to work for Cam?
You know, I think it's going to work great. There's a lot of layers to this one. First off, Kyle Shanahan is one of the biggest, best offensive minds in all of football, period. And if you look at the NFL landscape right now, his offense and his influence is all over the league. Probably, I would argue, 80 to almost 90% of the league. And so Dave's is going to be different. So from a game planning standpoint, and I'm just speaking for myself, like as a defensive coach, you're going through it, just looks like every offense is the same. But when you play the Tennessee Titans, it's going to be different. And so there is a level of game planning that's going to have to change within a week. So that's first. Dave's has had a history of developing young quarterbacks in this league in college and the different stops that he's had, and he's touched many from experience to youth. He has a tremendous amount of experience with tremendous quarterbacks all over, but there's a lot of benefits to what he does as a defensive guy, game planning against Dave's. I can tell you that he's always going to strain you both run and pass. He's going to find the run-pass conflicts within your scheme for individual players. He's going to attack out of it, and again, excuse my language, but he's special in that regard. He's a problem to go against.
Hi, Coach Saleh. Lauren Walsh with WSMV4 here in Nashville. You just described yourself as a defensive coach, and I think in these coaching cycles we see a lot of categorizations, offensive versus defensive types of head coaches. Do you subscribe to that? And how would you categorize yourself given somewhat of a mixture in your background between the two sides of the ball?
I don't. At the end of the day, and again, I maybe had a differentiation, I guess, or a thought when I first got a head job way back when. But after being in the chair, being in this chair isn't about offense, defense, special teams. It's about leading not just a group of players, but an entire building, and getting everybody on the same page and doing things in a way that help you win on Sunday. And so whether you're offense, defense, special teams, in this particular chair, I don't think it matters.
Hey, Coach. Chris Harris, also from WSMV4. We heard Mike talk about the qualities and leadership he was looking for. At the end of the season, we heard Jeffrey Simmons talk about how important a specific type of leader was for this team. What have you found to be the most effective way to lead?
Authenticity. I think, when you look at when you talk to players, they're grown men. They want to be treated like men. And they want to have discussions man to man, and they want to be told the truth. They always want to be they want to eliminate gray. They want things black and white. They want to know where they stand. They want the truth. They want to be held accountable. But most importantly, I think they want to know that you care more about them than just their jersey number. And I think that's very important with regards to connecting with these guys and understanding who they are, what makes them tick, and how to help them achieve their goals, not just on the field but off the field. And I think that takes a lot of work that's beyond the film room. And so when you talk about my leadership qualities, it is important for us to connect with our guys. It is important to know what makes them all tick. And most importantly, obviously, it's our responsibility as coaches and our obligation as coaches to help them get to where they want to go.
Hey, Robert. Corey Curtis with News 2 here in Nashville. It's been reported that this was the team that you circled that you wanted to be the head coach of. Obviously, there have been some tough times here the last couple of years. What was it about this team that you were willing to stake your coaching future on it?
Yeah. Shamelessly, I probably did as much research on this organization and the people, the leadership committee in this organization than they probably did on me, and did a ton of research on everything I could in terms of from top all the way down. And what I found is that the people here are unbelievable, and getting a chance to meet everybody in person, just was an affirmation to what I had already heard. And I'm a firm believer that people win championships. And this organization is built to win a championship because of the people, from obviously Miss Amy all the way down. The people here are unbelievable, and so that first and foremost is what drew me close to this organization.
Go ahead, Bob.
Buck Rising, 104.5 The Zone. Mike, for you, what stood out about Robert in the interview, and theoretically for both of you, what stood out about each other in the interview process that made this seem like a real fit?
Yeah, I mean, like Robert was saying, he did a lot of research on us, and we did a lot of research on you too, though. By the way. But a lot of the research that we did on Robert, from the places he's been, was everything that we were looking for. When I laid out those leadership qualities, the people that we talked to, he exemplified all of it. I mean, we called coaches, we called scouts, we called players that he had coached before. And so then when we had the opportunity to bring him in, you could feel his leadership as soon as he walked in. Robert has a presence about him. And then he was very thoughtful in everything that he laid out, from the off-season program to training camp, the way he was going to do practices. He's very in tuned in the weight room as well, as you can see. He had a plan for everything. Player development was a big part of it. And that was one thing that we heard over and over again. He can develop players. Going through his plan for player development and the things he does with the coaches to develop his players. Obviously, the scheme that he's run. I mean, he's a high football IQ. And then really the biggest thing was the person too. Every person we called, Robert is a great human being. So when he talks about people, we want great people here. And that's a big part of it. So.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Paul Kuharski again. I don't want to kick Brian out before he's in, but succession plans for successful offensive coordinators have been a thing here. And it's been reported that you presented one. If he has the success that you and the organization hope for here, what happens from there, and how do you plan for that in advance?
No, we're really excited about the staff that we've been able to assemble over the last week since we officially locked arms, if you will. But there's a plan. I think when you look at our staff, and obviously there's still some things that are fluid before we announce all of them to you, but we've got a tremendous mixture of experience and youth. We've got some young guys that'll be on the offensive staff that we feel are on the fast track to becoming coordinators. And like I said, for me, the succession plan comes from my seat in terms of what our plan is for each individual coach and how we develop them. I've talked about it before. The most cliche statement a coach can make is that it's our job to develop players. It's like, well, no kidding. Of course that's our job, but who are the people developing the coaches who are asked to develop the players? You can have a coach in the Stone Age that's developing his player, but his player's never going to leave the Stone Age. So how are we keeping our coaches up to date, evolving, staying ahead of the game, so our players are constantly evolving and staying ahead of the game? So we have a program for that, to make sure that our coaches are constantly evolving and pushing the envelope of what they're capable of, no different than we're going to ask our players to push the envelope of what they're capable of. So to go back to your original question, there's a plan in place. It'll kind of be revealed once we start showing off revealing our coaches. But it goes beyond the name of the coaches that are involved. It's going to go to the development that we expect them to have.
Robert, Jill Johnlick, Fox 17 Sports. You mentioned what you want the team to look like on Sundays on the field. But when it comes to building the culture you want to see from this team in the locker room here in Nashville, what are the biggest keys you want to emphasize when starting to build those building blocks for the culture you want?
Now, again, it goes back to people, bringing in people who are capable of executing the vision of the entire organization. We're going to preach effort. We're going to preach strain. We're going to preach violence. We want great character individuals both on and off the field, and that's where Borgo and I, in terms of evaluations, is checking the box on making sure that these young men are actually capable of doing that. That's what builds culture, and we'll always maintain that standard. We're going to obviously with the. I've always said that the best coach teams are the teams that coach themselves, but in the beginning, it's going to come from us. And at a certain point, as this team becomes veteran and it takes off and it understands what the standard is, the players will maintain the standard. And at the end of the day, the standard will always be the standard. But it starts with people.
You've used all gas, no brakes, love and regard. Now what? So to use yours, now what?
Now we'll always be all gas, no brake, man. But it's the words are words. It's always going to come back to the silent tape and what we show on tape. That's our resume. That's who we are. And so whatever word we use to identify what we want, it's all fun. But at the end of the day, it's the tape. The tape will always show everything.
And I know you got to learn this team and watch tape to learn more about players. But of the guys you do know on this roster, what you've seen, whether it's Jeffrey Simmons, Jim Dake, a couple of Pro Bowlers, what have you noticed about players that you will have under you now?
We obviously played this group a little bit later, so we have a good feel for the young nucleus that's here, and there's a lot of exciting guys that we're all excited to work with. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to do with regards to evaluating the roster and getting with Borgo and his staff and seeing where we're at. But again, it's to be able to sit here and work with guys like Jeffrey and get to work with a guy like Cam and all the different pieces around him, and it's going to be really exciting to get this thing going.
Robert, when you talk about establishing a standard, what will it look like when the standard is set? How will people be able to recognize that your standard has been set?
Already said it, man. They're going to pop off the tape. You're going to feel like you're on the field with them with the energy, the juice, the speed, the violence. You're going to feel it from the living room. Sitting on your couch, you'll be able to feel this football team.
What do you feel like are, once you've got your staff in place, are kind of the first steps to kind of implement everything and get things going in the direction you want it?
Man, there's so much to do starting the day. I mean, you can call it Monday, which is the first report date for the coaching staff. But there's a lot of stuff to do, from implementing scheme to evaluating the roster to creating our profile tapes for Borgo in terms of what each position should look like, to evaluating draft prospects with Borgo and his staff and free agency. So, and then obviously getting our plan set for OTAs. So there's a lot of things in terms of, there's going to be a lot of multitasking in terms of, with the new staff coming in, there's a lot of things that need to happen. We'll set those schedules accordingly, but there's a lot of T's and a lot of I's that need to be crossed and dotted.
Coach Saleh, Cortland Griffin with the three-point conversion. You spoke about connecting with players, but also setting the standard. How much is that is going to start with the younger guys like Femi Oladejo, Chim Dike, like you said, it's Cam, and the other guys when they walk into the building and meet you for the first time?
It's everybody, young, veteran. It doesn't matter. The second you walk into this building, there's a standard, there's messaging, there's an expectation of what we do both the second we walk into the building. I'll say it a million times that the objective of life is to go to bed better than when you woke up. And if you don't have that intent, if you don't have that mindset, you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your teammates a disservice, you're doing your family a disservice. And so it doesn't matter who it is. If you're an employee of this organization or you are part of that locker room, the expectation is that you're finding ways to get better, and that'll always be at the front of everything we do.
Robert, you mentioned how the all gas, no brakes, those are just words, but behind those words, there's always ideas and beliefs and just ways to operate. For you, what is the root of that? Who are some of the people that have influenced you to have this high energy approach to playing football?
I kind of just said it with all gas, no brake. It's not just effort on the football field. It's how you approach life, how you approach regen. It's how you approach lifting. It's how you approach practice, your study habits. Again, and it's really applies to anyone in general. Applies to my wife and kids. You know, you're waking up and you're going to bed better than when you woke up, with an intent to get better. That is the main focus of all of it. And I've said it before. My life completely changed when I got to Seattle in my early 30s. You know, when you look at guys like Pete Carroll, Gus Bradley, Kenny Norton Jr., there's just so many people on that staff that influenced my life, and not only on the field and for terms of football, but off the field, to be a better father, a better friend, a better man, was a tremendous amount of learning for me. But Gary Kubiak, the Shanahan family, Papa Shanahan, Monty Kib, I mean, I can go with so many unbelievable coaches in this league's history that have had an unbelievable impact on me. But the trigger point for me, I had a little 3-month-old at the time, and just trying to figure out who I was as a person. Seattle couldn't have been a better spot for me.
Coach Saleh, I don't know if you've thought this far ahead yet, but do you plan on running the stairs at Nissan Stadium, and why, if yes or no?
Yeah. No, for sure. I've been doing that since I was in a GA in college. It's just a way to kind of burn some steam before the game. Otherwise, I'd be a lunatic. But no, it's just a habit I've gotten into. Call it more superstition than everything. But yeah, I plan on it unless it gets too hot out there. But probably not.
All right, Mike Patton, touring the AFC South. You mentioned wanting to call the plays this time instead of letting the coordinators do so. In doing that, are you still going to be, active in all parts of the practice with the offense and defense, special teams as well?
Yeah, they're 100% still being active in all that stuff. Plan on not changing anything with regard to my role, especially having gone through it, and just it's not going to be any issue.
You talked about authenticity earlier and having to be yourself. I think there were times with the Jets you might have held it back a little bit. Do you plan on cutting it more loose this time around?
Well, that's part of it, right? What I've been talking about with regard to connecting with the players. What people don't really realize with these players and the amount of work that they put in for one play. You got a 3rd and 4, fourth quarter, critical situation. A player puts in hours and reps, and there's so much detail that goes into that one moment. And when that player executes that moment, what you see from me is I become a fan, and I become their parents. Just their biggest fans, and just elated for that person who just made that play. That's what you're seeing. And but it takes a connection, which goes back to why I have this desire to call plays, to regain that connection, because again, you feel the moment with the player, and but to answer your question, it'll probably come out more naturally than anything.
Robert, Junior Cooper, WSMV4. You mentioned developing these players. When you look at the roster and you see how young it really is, what level of excitement does it bring you to know you can kind of get your hands in there and mold these guys to these high-level players?
No, I'm like I said, I think I speak for everyone. We're really excited about the roster. You can call it a blank canvas if you want, but there's also some veteran leadership that you can't forget about. There's some really, really cool talent on this football team, and just excited to get to work with all of them.
Robert, Julian Minnesota, News 2 Nashville. What would you characterize a successful first season for you?
That's always a good question. Obviously, every team wants to win a Super Bowl. Every team wants to achieve the pinnacle of sports. That everybody does. But the realistic expectation is that this team understands what proper process looks like. Attacking every moment, attacking every day. Finding ways to get better every single day. And I know that's kind of cliche and kind of boring, but at the end of the day, we don't have control over the result of a football game. It's an oblong football. You don't know how it's going to bounce. But what we have control over is the way we attack our moments, the way we attack our day-to-day operation, the way we build confidence in our preparation so we can attack the heck out of Sunday to put ourselves in best position to get the result we want. And so from a successful being successful, what that looks like, I'll leave it up to you guys. But in this building, it's going to be about how we attack our moments.
Mike.
Robert. Oh, yeah. Ben Arthur, NFL on Fox. Robert, you've talked a lot about just how important, well, you've emphasized multiple times just how important it is going to be to have like the right people in the building. But like a lot of people say that when they come in as coaches and whatnot. So what is it about your process that gives you confidence that you can actually bring in the people to set the correct tone for the culture in the building?
No, that's a great question. I think it takes a tremendous amount of discipline. Like I don't want to speak for Borgo, but I can speak on my history and how enamored we can get with tremendous length and speed and all the things that we think can make an unbelievable athlete. But at the same time, there's a discipline to making sure that the right people are in the building first before we go anywhere else. And it's we've had a history of it. I can in terms of bringing in the right guys and developing the right people. But like I said, I feel like our history kind of speaks for itself with regards to the development of these young guys.
Mike, we see Cam back there. Is there anything you could tell us about his progress and prognosis? And then Robert, how quickly does Brian communicate with his quarterback guy? How much can you and Brian talk to him about what you want him to do now, and based on the prognosis, what can he do?
Yeah, I will say that he is currently, rehabbing, and I don't want to give a specific timetable when he's going to be back, but he's doing well. He's doing well.
As far as when we can contact, we'll always have friendly conversations, but there's different things that we can do from a football standpoint within the rules of the CBA. So we plan on taking advantage of all those.
Will Brian talk to his quarterback guy, and will you have communication that way?
Hopefully. These are all things that we've got to discuss over the next week.
Robert, you mentioned the amount of research you did on the Titans before you took the job. What were the questions that you were looking to get answers to before you were comfortable taking the job?
Yeah, it's about people. Just trying to figure out the people. Obviously, first and foremost, Miss Amy. And from everything I've gathered, she's an unbelievable human, and the resources that she's put into this organization is like nothing I've ever seen before. She's, for lack of a better word, putting her money where her mouth is in terms of how much she loves this team, how much she loves this city, how much she loves the people in this organization. And, but starting with her and working on down to everybody within the building, it's been, like I said, the people here and the conversations I've had, just trying to figure out who's real, who's authentic, and who's not. Be hard-pressed to find someone to say something bad about the people in this building.
Last three, we'll start with TD.
You mentioned how important feel for the game is for you. Where are you as far as measuring that against analytics? And we know it's been a part of the way people coach, tendencies, right?
Yeah,
that's another
forever.
word for
there you
it.
go.
But where are you as far as weighing those two things against each other?
Yeah, analytics is just a gathering of information. We've been doing it forever, but there's this new age of football, right, where there's more numbers, there's more information, and I think there's still it's all still within the moment. The new age of football is really a new set of information, but it's still our responsibility to make the decision that's best for the football team. It's not as simple as a book is telling you whether or not to go for it. The book doesn't account for weather. It doesn't account for whether or not Jeffrey Simmons is up against their third string guard. It doesn't account for any of that. So there's still decisions that need to be made, and we can get more detail later on how I go through that process. But it's information. It's information that we welcome, and but at the end of the day, we still have to take all that information and make the decision that's best for the team.
Anything else? All right.
All right.
We'll close.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.
Appreciate you guys.